Hello YouTubers, you are watching Just Do It Yourself channel, and today we have 2008 Mitsubishi Outlander, and we're doing a few things. We're replacing wheel bearing, we're replacing the axle seal on the passenger side, as well as the lower control arm with the ball joint. So there are a few videos on YouTube that I watched, and first thought probably not worth filming it, since there's lots of information already, though. While I was doing the left-hand side, driver's side, there were a few nuances that nobody mentioned, nobody showed. So I decided, let's take a video and capture all those moments that might create small or really big issues for yourself while doing this. So I will try to focus on that, less focus on the regular bolting and bolting. So we'll try to keep it as short as possible. Let's take the wheel off, and that's 21 mil socket. The vehicle is on a jack stand, both sides. I want to do it both sides, so you can spin your wheel to better reach to your bolts. 21 mil, 5 bolts, take them off. Next, I would strongly recommend to remove the axle nut. So for that, you need to straighten out the quarter pin. If you are using an impact, you can remove the nut later on. I am using the impact 1/2 inch Milwaukee, lots of torque, and I will leave all the links for the parts and tools in the description to the video, so check those out. That will also help this channel to grow. At this point, we just need to pull out this quarter pin. Okay, next we will put some WD-40 on the axle nut, 2 bolts and nuts that attach to the strut, the tie rod, the ball joint. Let it soak a bit. Another thing that is probably a good idea to put is on the ABS sensor. Interesting, there is no bolt. It would be broken at one point. Okay, so to get the axle nut out, I'm using 1.25 inch socket. You can use metric. I think it's around 32 mil. So that out. Next, you want to make sure that your axle is free. So actually, let's pull this washer out. Put the nut back on different way, so we're not damaging those lines. It's quite loose, which is nice. That's good enough. Next, we want to free up the brakes, so we will go with the pry bar. We're inside the rotor and push the caliper out. So it's loose now. Next, we will go ahead and remove 2 17 mil caliper bracket bolts, one top, one at the bottom. I'll be using impact and use any hand tools. Now when 2 bolts are removed, we'll grab our caliper bracket together with pads and just hang it so it's out of the way. Best way. Don't want to put too much pressure on the brake hose. Also, we want it to be out of the way as much as possible. Should be good enough. Okay. Okay, so the first nuance is the ABS sensor. You need to remove it in order to get the bearing out. And as you can see, this one doesn't even have a bolt. It's supposed to be in here. So on the other side, when I was trying to get it out, it just, like, this top piece broke of the inner piece. So you need to make sure that you spend enough time trying to get it out. So usually how I do this, and it seems to be always working but not this time, I will put screwdriver to apply some pressure so it's pushing it out, and then go with the punch up and down, trying to spin it. It takes a while, but usually I can work it out so it does not break. But those two seems to be stuck quite well. So on the other side, they basically, what I ended doing, I removed the wire brackets so I didn't break the wire while I was removing the knuckle. And then when the knuckle was off, I hammered it out from the inside. So seems like it's not throwing any errors yet. I'm not sure if it's working or not, but quite honestly, considering how badly they are seized, I would probably have 2 new sensors ready before you start this job. I did not, and I checked the local store for pricing and they said a couple of days away. The left one was 200 bucks, the right one was like 80 bucks, what is ridiculous for the ABS sensor, especially that 200. So long story short, you can order 2 sensors on Amazon for under $100, and that's what I would recommend doing it. So you can see that this one is not coming out, and if I are pushing even more, it will just break. So what we will do here, we will remove this 12mm bolt, this 12mm nut, then this plastic bracket just slides off. So the wire will be loose, and we should be able to get the hub out together with the sensor and then try to pry it out from the inside. So next I'll remove the bolt on the lower wood joint, and that's 17mm. Need a battery, I guess. So we'll just spin it a few times so it's easy to hammer it out. So next we will just put the nut back in. We will push it out. This is the bolt. We'll need to clean it before we put it back. Next we will remove the cotter pin and 17mm nut from the tie rod. To straighten those out first as much as you can. In some ball joints they will have like a nylon washer. Or nylon lock nut, I should say. Just use 17mm socket. Again, put this back on for 1 sec and hit it from the side until it drops. Back. So next we will get the lower ball joint and the lower control arm out. So with the ball joint you wanna kind of spread this pinch side, so just use a chisel, and when you turn your wheel to the right there is enough room to put the chisel in and hammer it. So quite easy, push it in, get it loose, and then you can see the lower ball joint is quite loose right away. Next we'll remove two bolts that hold the control arm in place. If you're not replacing control arm, you can skip the step. So this one doesn't have a nut, like the nut is welded in a frame. You just pull it out. So for the other one, we need to hold it with the wrench on the top. We'll use the input from the bottom. You need to drop the extension. So there's not much room to the floor. Now it's all the way out. Now we should be able actually to push the control arm down. Same with the other side where the ball joint is. Now just push it out or pull it. So two last balls that hold our knuckle in place are those two that are attaching it to the strut. So we'll get that off, and those also 19 mil. One nice thing to work on this car is that most of the bolts and nuts are either 17 or 19. So at this point, I will actually put this bolt back in for a sec so it doesn't drop. Okay, just one sec. So now, with the axle being loose, we should be able to get this wheel knuckle out. And we remember that the ABS cable is still connected. That's why we need this little chair over here. And just flip it. I'll show you here is the ABS sensor sticking out. So this is the magnetic ring on the bearing, and it's sticking out and it reads how fast it rotates. So what we will try to do, we'll try to lubricate it and try to hammer this sensor out, because it seems like this is the only way to get it out in one piece. And to be quite honest, if this does not work, we will just buy a new sensor. There is not much that we can do about it. It just seized really bad. And this seems to be even worse than the other side. Let's just make sure that it's actually not bolted to the hub. There's no bolt whatsoever. It's just been seized really badly. That's why at the beginning when I said have two sensors ready, would be my best advice, because they are not coming out easily. And potentially we will damage it while we are hammering it out. But considering that this is the only option to get it out in one piece, we'll take the chance. Okay, so here it is. Will it work? Don't know, but we'll give it a try. And my sincere apologies, I forgot one step. We need to remove the brake rotor. So it's like, while it's still attached, just hammer the rotor out. It should split from the hub right away. Alright, so we are at the press now, and we need to get out the spindle part, if I call it correct. Though a few nuances that I had. So this is 12-ton shop press, and this distance in between was not enough to fit the spindle. So the stock pieces are too short, so they will just drop. Also those bolts that hold together also are too short, so I had to use the longer bolts. So then those plates also need to cut them to be long enough to sit on top of the distance. So that you need to be ready to figure out how your press works and how wide it is. Will this fit in? But now we have those two plates on both sides. We can just start pumping. So another thing, there is that dust shield that is kind of in between the knuckle and the plate, so it will get bent a bit, but it's not a big deal. We can straighten it out. So now we just make sure that this is going straight down and on top of the spindle, so we don't damage the splines inside the spindle. So a few pumps, we're basically bending that dust shield, but now our spindle is coming out. So here's the inner race. We will deal with that. And if we look at our knuckle, so the bearing is out, and as I said, we have bent the shield, but it's not a big deal. To get this inner race off, like if you have bearing puller that will go from both sides and pull it out, perfect, you can use that. Good idea to warm this up. What I will do, I will cut the upper part off with the angle grinder. I will leave like a mil or two to the spindle itself, so you don't scratch it, don't damage it, and it will come off loose. Okay, so I have this cut. Now I will take a punch, and here you need to make sure that you're wearing like a face shield. And I will just so that piece will fly off. Now we just need to break this part here. Usually it would crack quite easily. Maybe I left too much meat on it, so I'll just grind a bit more. Alright, so now this race has a small crack in it, so now it's coming off quite easily. Plus, it is hot from all the cutting and grinding. So I think this is the easiest way to remove it if you don't have a special puller. Okay, so now we have to deal with the knuckle itself. We have this snap ring over here. First we will spray it with W40. And there are two scenarios right now. So either you have pliers like this, then you want to free this ring all the way, put the pliers in, squeeze it, get it out. That's what I've done with the other one. Though, if you do not have special pliers, you don't want to get this ring loose and spinning inside. Instead, you want to push on this side while this is, let's say, still stuck, and then insert the screwdriver and try it out. And I will try to do it this way, just to show you. So you see there is a gap right now, so you want to use it, because like if this end starts spinning, you won't be able to do this. You will need those special pliers. Be quite stubborn. So this way we put quite a bit of tension on the ring, and you can see it's kind of bent right now. So I would strongly recommend get the new one. They're cheap, they're just a few dollars, maybe $5. But it's new and you know that it will hold well. So now when the snap ring is removed, we can push the bearing out. But before we do that, we will remove this dust shield so we don't damage it anymore. Okay, so now our knuckle is upside down and we are pushing on the bearing since our snap ring is removed. So there is nothing holding that bearing. So I'm just using 1 5/8 socket. And it takes lots of pressure. Break it loose. Now it goes. A few more pumps. Great. Next we'll just use the wire wheel on the drill. We'll clean this groove where the snap ring sits so the new one goes in easily and everything around the bearing. Another thing that you want to do, you want to clean this hole where the ABS sensor is. Regardless if you are able to get the bolt in one piece or not, still when you put the new one, you need this to be clean so it goes in easily. Another thing that we will do here is we will use M6 tap We will recondition that thread since there was no bolt for some reason. We want to put the bolt in. So okay, so our knuckle is all clean, so we will spray with WD-40. In terms of the bearing itself, so we're using SKF, and I will try to find and leave a link in the description to the video so you can click and buy it without big efforts. Anyway, one side is black, and this is the magnetic ring that is sending the signal to the ABS sensor. The other side is shiny, so the black, the magnet one, goes to the back, and you can test, like if you grab a light piece of metal, this is quite magnetic, so it should hold. So we'll put this bearing facing magnetic ring down. So the bearing is under this plate, and I already got it slightly in, and now we just try to push it more. Honestly, before you get it like halfway in and then it starts going evenly, you might need to spin this around a few times, even take the plate off and just push with your jack in a certain point to get it leveled, because if it's going uneven too much and it jammed, there will be lots and lots of troubles. So don't get yourself to that point. So now we'll just get to the top of the knuckle, and then we will reuse our old bearing. More room. Good. Slide this plate. Make sure that the old bearing is exactly on top of the new one, and push it in. So it has to come to the hard stop. You don't need to put 12 tons of pressure, but if you can feel that there's lots of resistance already, you probably are good. And you can double check. So basically now you need to check if that groove where the snap ring goes in is visible and accessible. So now we can put the snap ring back in. Okay, to get the snap ring in, you can always go the way as you pull it out. If you don't have pliers, push one side and hammer, 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 get it in. I will use my pliers, and I will leave a link in the description to the video, so you can buy them. They're not that expensive and they work really well. This will happen a lot with anything spring loaded, like this snap ring. But that's it. So if you working with any type of snap rings, there's the kit, and I will leave a link in the description so they can work to expand, to press both directions. It's quite nice thing to have. So next we'll put back the dust shield. Very important. You might get excited about the assembly, and you can forget easily. So this is on. So our spindle is nice and clean. There is no rust, damage, or anything, so we can push this in. Alright, so here is one of the most important parts of this video. So when you push your spindle in, you need to support your bearing from underneath. If you just put this here and then press it as it's shown in one of the video, most likely that you will damage your bearing. The inner race will pop out. So don't do that. So for that purpose, we use a socket and we put it underneath the metal part. Don't put it on top of the magnet piece, since you can damage it. So you'll put it here, turn it, then we'll need to center it again so we are not touching the magnet piece. And only now spray it with WD-40 and press our spindle in. So again, if you miss that part, you shouldn't push without support at the back of the bearing. Just using adapter, 3/4 adapter on my spindle so I don't damage the splines inside. You want this to be as centered as possible. You can start pushing this in. So now when our bearing is supported from underneath, we can go until we can feel resistance. Not be afraid that we will destroy the bearing. So this sounds good to me. Move this part. Get this off. Check our bearing. Check that the magnet piece is still there. Perfect. So in general, if you want to double check, the spindle should be kind of leveled with this side of the bearing. Okay, we have started the assembly. I cleaned all the bolts, put the blue Loctite on the top one. It's not tight yet. Next, we want to put the axle back in, and before I do that, I'll just put some anti-seize on the splines, since they might be really hard to remove when they get older and get a little bit of rust. So some anti-seize should keep it in a nice shape. So we'll just put that axle back in. Now we can put the second bolt. We'll put again a little bit of blue Loctite on it. So we don't get anything tight just yet, as we want to assemble everything, so much easier to put parts in when they are a little bit loose. So next we'll put the new control arm in. So we need to pull. There's that ABS sensor, be careful not to damage it, since it went a long way to be not destroyed. So we don't want to destroy it at this step. We'll need to use a hammer to help it get in. Okay, so this side is aligned. So I will put the bolt in there again. Just a tiny bit of glue Loctite. So to get this one in, we need to lift this control arm. So don't want to take too much of your time, but we'll just use a small punch and try to align it. Okay, so the control arm 2 bolts are tight now. So next we will put the ball joint back in. I have put that punch back in to spread it a bit to make life a little bit easier. So now this goes in. We have cleaned the bolt. We'll apply some glue Loctite. I shouldn't say it for every bolt. We do it. I'll do it everywhere. Okay, so the bolt is in. We'll get that snug. Next, I'll put in back the tie rod. For that, you might need to spin your hub a bit, knuckle, depending on how your steering wheel is sitting. So this one has really low torque, so we'll just make it snag a bit. So now when all the components are in, we should be able to go ahead and snag all the bolts. We'll torque them later on. Start with this spur. The ball joint is snug. This is snug. So next, what we will do, we'll put this ABS sensor back in. So one bracket over there, one over here, and then the sensor itself. I'll also put some anti-seize around it. So the ABS sensor is in, and before we put the rotor back in, we just want to apply some anti-seize. Make sure that it's easy to remove next time. Put it back in. Now we want to spray it with the brake clean. Make sure that there is no grease or any sort of that nature on the drum. Now we will try to put the brakes back on. Just make sure that the brake pad is where it's supposed to be. Gently go over the rotor. The rotor is loose, what might make it difficult. If you want, you can use one lug nut to attach. So now we will use our bracket bolts. Attach it. So one is in. And for the caliper bolts, same thing, clean them, use some glue Loctite. Next I'll put the washer and the nut back on. This will get it snug with the impact, and you can now use your brakes to hold it in place. Alright, so all the bolts are in place, all the parts are in place. So next what we need to do is to torque everything. So 2 bolts that attach into the shock will torque to 91 foot-pounds. Ball joint bolt 52 foot-pounds. tie rod, I mentioned it just 18 foot-pounds. Axle nut, 107 foot-pounds, and brake caliper bracket bolts to 74 foot-pounds. After that, we'll just need to install the wheel back on, torque at 200 foot-pounds, as well as we will need to install the quarter pins into the axle nut and also in the tie rod. That should be it. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please check links in the description to the video. Get any parts and tools that you need. And as always, just do it yourself.